G'day guys, and welcome to another YouTube lesson. Today we're going to be taking a look again at operations and at the strategies. We're going to be looking at the syllabus dot point of inventory management. And under inventory management, there's 4 key things you need to understand, be able to define them, and also be able to explain how it's an advantage and how it's also a disadvantage. Right, those 4 things under inventory management include advantages and disadvantages of holding stock or of holding each, and that's looking at JIC, just in case, versus JIT, just in time. You'll also be looking at that just in time as well. The last 2 dot points we'll be addressing are LIFO, last in, first out, inventory management, what it is and how it can be of benefit, and what are the downsides, and also Fifo, first in, first out inventory management, how that's an advantage for a business and how it can be used as an operational strategy, and also how it has its downsides as well. So operation strategies, again, the definition of the dot point's very important, but how it can be used as a successful strategy for a business, a case study, and the statistics are vital as well. So operational strategies. An operation strategy is something that the operations business function can use to improve the operating process. i.e. they can make the product to reduce price, improve the overall quality, or even reduce lead times. All of these things are strategies that would improve operations, meet those performance objectives that we mentioned in previous clips and previous lessons. Now, something to note in terms of inventory management. I'll get it right eventually. Inventory management. For the HSC, inventory, stock, tomato, same thing. But Band 6 kids may want to know the slight difference, because there is a difference between inventory and stock. You'll often see in textbooks them used interchangeably, but to be technical, if this is too confusing, ignore. But this first part, if you want to know the difference between that inventory and stock, listen carefully. All right, for the most part, as I said, inventory and stock are used interchangeably. But inventory includes raw materials, partially processed materials, and also final stock. Stock, on the other hand, is only what will eventually be sold to the customer, the final product. So remember, inventory is those raw materials and also partially processed materials. If you think about a computer shop with this fancy Toshiba computer I've got here, we're talking about stock being the final computer sold to the customer. Whereas if it was partially put together, where you had the keys separate, you had your silicon chip processors not there, all together and so on, that's inventory. All right, now, in terms of HSC, we'll take a look here at these 4 particular things, as I was saying. Firstly, it's the advantage and disadvantage of holding each. And by that it means, is it good to hold lots of additional stock? We call that JIC, just in case. There's good things about holding extra stock, and there's some downsides of having additional stock on hand, just in case, hence the term JIC. Remember, when you're writing your essays, you can mention just in case, but we talk about it from the perspective of an advantage of holding additional stock or a disadvantage of holding additional stock. The flip side to this is JIT, which actually is in the syllabus, both should be, which is just in time. And that's the advantage of holding just enough stock that's needed, because there are some pros for that, why it's a good strategy. There's some disadvantages, but we'll look at that later. So disadvantage, firstly, of holding too much stock, having too much just in case, can be that it can be expensive to store all the stock in a large warehouse. Stock, if you have too much of it, can become obsolete, especially technological stock like computers and so on. Imagine if you had 1 million units or items of an iPhone 5, they're not really relevant anymore. They become obsolete. Same with perishable goods. JIC, having additional stock on hand, just in case, it can be a downside with perishable or technological items. Some advantages, because it's got to be a good strategy to have additional stock sometimes, certainly are. Some advantages include stock is ready to use if needed by the customer. No need to rely on suppliers for prompt deliveries. Your lead time will improve if you have stock on hand, because you don't need to go and getting it delivered as soon as the customer orders something. Opportunity for discounts when ordering in large amounts of stock. What do you call that when you order things in large amounts? You're buying in bulk. Yep. So you get those discounts for having that rather than just a little bit at each time. Plus two, I bought some furniture recently for our place and from IKEA, as you do. And the delivery fee was the same amount whether we purchased one piece of furniture or like 4 or 5, because it's all in that flat packs. So you get a discount too in terms of delivery prices. Advantage of holding stock also, able to take advantage of growing markets domestically and overseas. And inputs and components can be used as spare parts if required, if you've got lots of different stock there. So you need to be able to make sure you understand what holding additional stock means. Know that it's called just in case. The flip side would be directly from the syllabus JIT, just in time. And you also need to be able to tell the HSC marker how to be an advantage of holding extra stock. What's the benefit? How can it be used as a strategy? Or it's a disadvantage. Why wouldn't you want to do it? Now, we'll get back to JIT a little bit later on, but LIFO is the next inventory management technique. It literally stands for last in, first out, LIFO. That means, what does LIFO mean? You need to think about it. The stock purchased most recently is sold first. So you've got some apples at Woolies, and you've bought apples a week ago, 3 days ago, this morning, whatever. Which ones would you sell first? LIFO, last in, first out, means you would sell to the customer the most recent apples that you had purchased. Fifo we'll look at in a second, you would sell the ones from a week ago. Now, hopefully the cogs are ticking over in your brain and you're sort of thinking, well, I already can see a problem with LIFO with certain things. Correct. Okay, FIFO is good for perishable goods. Last in, first out is not so good. We'll get into that in a second. Now, the LIFO method can be used for goods that have no use-by dates, such as machinery parts or canned food, or use-by dates that have a long shelf life. So it's not an issue if you don't have perishable goods. LIFO is fine. That means there's no disadvantage there. But why would you use it as a strategy? This is where it gets a bit technical, a bit hard. The first part makes sense. With last in, first out, here's the advantage. New inventory can cost more than stock or inventory. Remember, I'm using it interchangeably now. Doesn't really matter for year 12. New inventory can cost more than stock purchased earlier in the year. How does that work? Well, if I bought a computer today, or I bought a computer, let's exaggerate it and say, 7 years ago, then generally because of inflation, you pay more over time. Things go up in value. That's generally how things work. Okay, so when you're looking at LIFO and FIFO, you need to think about most recently stuff costs more to buy than earlier on. All right, so new inventory can cost more than stock purchased earlier in the year. Generally true. Higher cost of goods sold. Think about your income statement. You have your sales minus what goes after that in an income or revenue statement or profit and loss statement. Sales minus COGS equals gross profit. Sales minus COGS equals your gross profit. Then you minus all those other expenses and you get your net profit, and a business is taxed upon that net profit. So let's get back to it. How is LIFO of any use? So because of inflation, higher cost of goods sold, and because the business is using the cost of the most recent stock, it is more expensive. Because what they're saying is their sales stays the same in terms of their income statement. Might be $1,000. You want your COGS to be as low as possible to make more profit. So if sales are $1,000 and your COGS is $200, this wouldn't be the case with LIFO, it would be with Fifo, but this wouldn't be the case with LIFO. So your COGS will be higher, say $700. Your profit will be less, $300. Sales $1,000. COGS under LIFO would be higher because you bought the cost of goods sold more recently, $700. Your gross profit will be $300, and so on. And you're thinking, wait, that's crap. Lower profit. With Fifo, it would be $1,000 sales, they stay the same. And then through accounting quirks, you're going to value it based on, with Fifo, the cheaper cost to buy those same items. All right, you'd have more profit. So how's LIFO good? Well, think. Lower profit in creative accounting terms would result in you paying more or less tax. Less tax. So the advantage of LIFO, last in first out, is that because you're valuing your cost of goods sold, the cost to purchase those goods, that is more expensive, you're left with less profit. And you're really not. It's just an accounting quirk, you know. So therefore you pay less tax. And I want you to do an exercise where you get, you know, a piece of paper, have the same sales, it's called $1,000, have LIFO as a heading and Fifo as another heading. And under LIFO, you're going to have your COGS higher, say $800. Under the Fifo heading, sales is still $1,000. Write it down and you'll have your cost of goods sold at a cheaper price. Let's say $400 for the Fifo. And then see which has the higher gross profit. Obviously, it would be first in, first out. Less in, last in, first out. And less profit results in greater tax. Now, Fifo I'll get to it quickly because I've kind of already explained all that through the other one. The advantage of first in, first out, firstly, is perishable items. If you've ever been to the supermarket, and these days, you know, when I go to Woolies, they've got the milk that you purchase, and it's kind of not, this is a sort of cross section, it's not quite like that when you go into the fridge. It sort of slides down a little bit, and all the milks are like that, and you take it from the front and then the rest slide down. Why do they do that? Because they use the first in, first out inventory management technique. They have the oldest stock, the first stuff that was purchased back in the day, at the front. So customers keep taking the first stock that was purchased, which is the oldest stock. The first purchased is the first out. And the most recent stock gets sold last, the opposite of last in, first out. All right, so me, like most people, although most people are lazy, so they probably don't do it, I reach for the one at the back and I check the use by date and get the more recent milk. All right, so first in, first out is good for perishable items like milk, even some technological equipment and so on. Now, what's a disadvantage? Well, another advantage, I suppose, / disadvantage for first in, first out. The exercise that I got you to do earlier for the inventory management and taxation and profit of last in, first out, it's the same but in reverse for first in, first out. Okay, with first in, first out, your profit is higher because your COGS is lower. It's being valued based on the earlier COGS. It was cheaper because of inflation. Your net profit looks higher. I don't know, as a business, maybe you are accountable to your stakeholders, in particular your shareholders. You might need to have a win. You might need to have a decent net profit for that financial year, so that could be good. However, your tax would be higher because of that. All right, almost there. Just in time. Again, we've got a pretty good idea of this because it's the flip side of just in case. You only hold enough stock just to be able to meet the customer's needs. Happens a lot in businesses, kind of shits me. When you're getting, I remember when I purchased my first lounge, and even the more recent one, you have to wait sometimes 5-6 weeks for them to be made up. And it's like, dude, there's like 5 colors you can choose from. It's the same standard stock. Can't just have them in a big warehouse and I rock up and we pick them up. But the reason why the furniture shops often don't do that, lounges are big in size. If you had thousands of lounges in this warehouse, then it would require a lot of space. Who pays for that storage? The business selling the lounges and the other things, the tables and so on, to the customer. So they don't have many on stock, little if all, and the customer purchases them, and then the stock is made up, those lounges are made up. Requires less storage space, and therefore it is cheaper for the customer, cheaper for the business as well. All right, so that's that trade-off. Think of the performance objectives of what? Buying a lounge using JIT, is speed quick, lead times take forever. Is costs reduced because they don't have to pay for those additional storage costs, and that's the advantage that you see. Now, some other advantages include increased liquidity of working capital as less cash is tied up in stock. True. Think about your balance sheet. You can have that in cash rather than having that in stock on hand. And that's often the second item on your balance sheet. Cash, stock / inventory. Remember, there is a difference, but we don't need to know it. Okay. And also accounts receivable. So less in stock means more in cashola. You are more liquid, better working capital. Reduce the chance of stock becoming obsolete. Yeah, that's true. Look, lounges, again, they become outdated, obsolete, and so on. So you don't want to make up a whole bunch of things that fashions change and no one pays for. Reduces the chance with JIT of perishable stock spoiling, fresh fruit. You don't want to have 1 million apples there on the shelves because what if they don't all sell? Get them in when you need to. All right, so they're the main advantages that we have in terms of JIT. All right, guys, thanks as always, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.